This episode is brought to you by the supporters of 40 Watt Podcast over on Patreon. Go over to patreon.com/40watt podcast, where for as little as $3 per month, you can help support the podcast and get every episode ad-free. For $5 a month, you'll get every episode ad-free, as well as a bonus episode every week. I can't overstate how thankful I am for the support of my patrons, and hope you'll consider joining the team and helping keep this show on the road. 40 Waters, welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. This week, I have my friend Mark Turley from Summer School Electronics back on the show. It was really great to catch up with Mark, talk about what he's been doing, talk about the things he's got planned, what's coming up. Then we proceeded to get super weird on the Patreon episode and dive down the deepest rabbit hole of PV nostalgia I think I've ever gone down. As a native Mississippian, PV is kind of near and dear to my heart, and Mark and I just kind of nerd out about it. So hope you're going to stick around. If you want to find that extra episode, go over to patreon.com/40watt podcast. $5 a month gets you behind the scenes. You get the extra content every time an episode goes up, just like our newest Patreon supporter, Joseph Adler. Joseph, thank you for joining the team. Thank you for your support. I can't tell you how much it really, really means to me that so many listeners support what's going on here and what I'm working to build in this community that's kind of rallied around the episode. If you're into joining this community, there is a Facebook page. You can go over and join the group. You can also join our Discord server. There's lots of ways to get connected. Another great thing I need to mention before we move on is I want to thank our sponsor for this podcast, Barry from Grez Guitars. Barry is building some of the coolest guitars on the planet. His Mendocino is one of my absolute favorites. I have one of the baritone versions of that guitar. Also, we've been kind of working on another project that I'm hoping to see in the light of day very, very soon. So stay tuned for that. Go check out his Instagram. Go check out his Facebook. Go check out grezguitars.com. Its links are down below in the description or in the show notes. And while you're doing that, lastly, y'all, if you want to help this podcast, and I really hope you do, I really hope you enjoy it, click the subscribe button, click the bell icon, leave a comment on YouTube, leave a thumbs up, leave a review and a rating over wherever you listen to your podcast, and click the follow button. All of those little things help the algorithm, the big bad algorithm, point this podcast to more listeners and to more viewers, and it greatly it helps me, and I appreciate it. That's it. No more. I'm going to let you get into this episode with Mark from Summer School Electronics. Hello. Welcome to a new episode of 40 Watt Podcast. You've already heard the stuff at the top of the episode, so I'm not going to rehash. Thank you so much for joining us, hanging out, listening, doing the whole 9 yards. I am going to say this. You're probably going to hear it twice because you may have skipped over the stuff at the very beginning of the episode. I need to make sure you hear this. Make sure you click the subscribe button, the follow button, the bell icon. Hit the thumbs up, hit whatever it is, rate, review, please. It helps this podcast so much. I think a lot of YouTubers and a lot of podcasters are in what we're calling the summer lull. And so everybody's kind of outside, everybody's doing things, they're staying busy, and they're not, listening and watching episodes. So it helps the algorithm push it out to other people. Feed the machine, y'all. Okay, I'm moving on. I'm done with that. I can't even get super excited about the commercialization of it. Anyway, this week on the podcast, we have Mark from Summer School Electronics. How are you, sir?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
Man, I'm okay. It's been a while since I podcasted because summer gets busy for me, and then I got sick. Y'all, I'm just coming off of COVID.
Glad you're feeling better.
Me too.
You cough actually. Right after I say you're
I know. I cough. It's fine. I
got to work on our timing, man. Come on.
Still getting over it just a little bit. I've been joking about it, though. So last year, I got COVID right after Fretboard Summit.
Oh.
Yeah, I came home and was sick. And so actually, the symptoms started to hit me just before I left Chicago. And I was like, oh, no, I can't do that again. And I haven't had it again. And I'm like, oh, no. And so when I got it, y'all, I don't mean to say this how it's going to sound, but I was actually almost a little relieved. I'm like, yes, at least I got it before Fretboard.
You're good now. Yeah.
Yeah,
You can
I'm
safely ride it
okay.
out.
Yeah, exactly. Because, well, the other side of the coin is that right after Chicago, for Fretboard Summit, I'm going to be traveling to do some training in the Midwest and over on the East Coast the next week. And so if I got COVID, suddenly all those trainings I was going to be doing have to get canceled. And y'all, consultant training in my field is sort of how I pay for my gear habit. So I needed to make that money. You know how it works.
That has to happen. We can't cancel that.
Yeah, no. So, but Fretboard Summit is coming up, and Mark, you're going to be there.
I will be there. Yeah.
How excited are you?
I'm pretty super excited. I heard about it last year and like some of the stuff that was gonna happen, and I was like, I'd love to get into it, but I had already had tickets for my wife's birthday to go see the Pixies and Modest Mouse and Cat Power and all these bands, and we're like, it's the same day. I can't do Fretboard Summit. So coming around this year, I was like, I think we should give it a shot, and like we saw the dates and everything, and I talked to some people who were like, yeah, you should definitely do. I'm like, all right, we're gonna give it a shot. So flying out to Chicago in a couple weeks, and excited. It's really just we're gonna bring a bunch of stuff. We have some special limited edition things that we're gonna be bringing with us out there.
Super secret science fair project, and I don't mean your pedal science fair.
No.
That's very awkward.
That's been announced. I can talk about that.
Okay.
So I think I heard about it from Josh Scott. I think he's hosting it, but I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure he is.
That's correct.
So all the bunch of builders for pedals, guitars, amps, ukulele, harmonica things, whatever's going to be there. Everyone's making a special one-off to be their science fair project. That is basically like a little kid science fair. We're going to make something totally impractical, totally ridiculous, but it's just going to be a one-off, just to show like, here's something I can do, but probably wouldn't bring to market and wouldn't make hundreds of them. But here's a one-off. So we have ours already. It's stupid, and I love it.
No, I absolutely. You showed it to me earlier, and I absolutely love it.
Once we get there and have it revealed at Fretboard Summit, it'll be all over our social media. It'll be everywhere. But yeah, we're super excited for that. I checked out some of the luthiers and pedal builders stuff that are there. I'm just excited to go like check it all out and see what's out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
it's I'm not gonna lie. So this will be my third year going. My first year was a very brief appearance back in 2022. I actually just happened to be in Chicago when it was happening.
Oh,
I didn't mean to be there. We were actually, my wife and I were going to Chicago to hang out with a friend, and we were going to go see Ariel Posen at Shuba's. And then I realized it was the same weekend, and so I messaged Barry from Grez Guitar, sponsor of the podcast, and I said, "Hey Barry, I'm going to be around. You want to grab coffee, grab dinner, something like that?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Actually, they give me a guest on my vendor thing. You want to just come into the show?" I was like, yeah, if that's cool. I'm only going to be able to spend a couple of hours, like at most, right? Because to go, I'm robbing, like couple vacation time, and so I can only do so much of stealing that time away. And man, I didn't get to see a whole lot in those couple of hours, but I got to hang out. I met some really great vendors. I met the folks over at 3 Bender, which make this really rad guitar, like G Bender, B Bender kind of thing. Matt at Mule, of course, hung out with Barry. They're just like, in that brief moment, I got to meet like some really, really awesome people. And so I was like, I'm going next year. And so last year I went as a full participant, paid full fee, as I did this year, to go and attend. And it's so overwhelming. There's so much going on for, like, I know people are thinking this is a small show. And yeah, if you compare it to something like NAMM or like, something like that, yeah, it's small, but there is so much. There are so many vendors. There are so many people to talk to and meet and hang out with and catch up with later. And there's so many shows and so many sessions and talks, and just you can't go to everything no matter how
Yeah.
bad you want to. And also hang out with people. And of course, I know more people this year than I did last year. So it's going to be, I want to hang out with my friends and do stuff. And so I have no idea. Also, apparently, Jason and I have talked. I'm gonna moderate a conversation as part of
Oh,
Fretboard Summit
nice.
as well. I don't know if Jason wants me talking about this. I'm going to talk about it. Going to be moderating a pedal panel on Saturday.
Oh,
It's
that's
going to be
cool.
really cool with a bunch of pedal builders talking about just the industry and what they do and how they do it and how they got that kind of stuff. But it is the coolest gathering of people in this industry I've ever been a part of. Everyone should come. That's my
Yeah.
sales pitch.
It sounds awesome. Like I said, I'm still going off of like what I've seen
Yeah.
online, what I've heard from people who've gone in the past, and I'm like, I got time. I can summer vacation still. We can make it happen. Let's go. And my buddy James, who you met him at NAM,
Yeah.
he was helping at our booth. He's like, he's gonna be there with me, so I can sneak off to do fun stuff, and he's also like super excited. So I'm sure it'll be like him and I will just be like tagging in and out and just be like, we're not gonna see each other this whole weekend because like if you're here, I'm gonna go check out other cool stuff.
Oh, well, you'll see each other at dinner. We'll all go
Yeah,
out
well, yeah, we'll
and
do
have
that.
some deep dish pizza. Actually, we won't. I'm not a deep dish pizza person, but um,
We'll get you there. We'll get you there.
yeah, it's fine. I'm on the Blake Weiland train with this one. Blake and I agree. Deep dish pizza is good, but it's not really pizza.
It's well, it's a cousin.
It's pizza soup in a bread bowl.
Well, listen. If
Look,
Sabaros can claim that that's pizza, Chicago can claim that that's pizza too. It's a wide tent. So many people are invited.
it is a very big tent. Everyone
Yeah,
can get
I
onto this
mean,
one.
come on, be cool. It's like
Yeah.
it's like a pizza cousin. You know, everyone's got that
It
weird. People got that weird cousin.
it is definitely a pizza cousin. I will call it that. I was trying to think what is the like drunk uncle of the pizza family then. If
Calzones.
deep is it Cal? No, don't disrespect calzones like that. Calzones are that one like distant like great uncle who
Uh,
like had like his 15 minutes of fame and then kind of fizzled into
yeah.
obscurity, and it's like he's okay. No,
Like
no,
he,
he's
he
not
keeps
the
talking about it years
yeah,
later.
he's not the drunk uncle though. Come on.
He's the Uncle Rico of pizza.
Oh no, I'm gonna piss people off. White sauce pizza is the drunk uncle of pizza.
All right, I can see that.
Yeah. Anyway, I digress. No, it's real cool, and I think a lot of people still don't understand what Fretboard Summit is, which is fine because it's hard to understand until you're there. Because Fretboard Journal is kind of an acousticy grandpa's guitars kind of publication. It's not really y'all. I'm sorry if Jason, if you're listening to this, I know that it is not that, but it has a reputation because they do focus a lot on the folkier side of things and acoustic instruments. But man, last year there was so much electric guitar at Fretboard Summit.
That's what I wasn't sure of when it was like, we're planning out our year, and I was like on the fence about it, and I'm like, I know, we're a small company and there's only so much travel that you can afford to do throughout the year,
Right.
And I was like, I don't know, I know it's like a big acoustic thing, and I'm like, is it worth it for like a pedal company to go and do that? And I talked to some, people who've been doing it for a lot longer and run other companies, and they were like, if you play acoustic, you probably play electric too, and if you play electric, you love pedals. I was like,
That's
oh,
so
yeah,
fair.
I guess that's true. It's like, yep, so they'll be there, so I'm like, let's do it. Let's bring out some pedals and set up some boards and go to town.
Yeah,
So
it's so fair, and it's just such a cool environment. And also, I love Chicago. I love Old Town School of Folk Music there. They've got a great little music store down in the basement. So that's the other thing. You're in a building with a music store the entire time. Like you can go down in the store.
It's dangerous.
It's so dangerous. It's so bad. And they've got some of the coolest instruments on the planet there. Yeah, I'm if you can't tell, I'm really excited. It's finally August. All the things are happening. I'm really, really pumped. I've been looking forward. Okay. If I wasn't, I was close to the first person to buy tickets for this year's Fretboard Summit after they went on sale. Like I had been waiting and waiting and waiting, and they sold them kind of early. They put them on sale a little early because I told Jason last year. I said, Jason, if people will buy them as soon as you put them out.
Yeah.
And they did. I think as of time of recording, there's still like a handful of tickets left for people that want to go. They haven't completely sold out yet, which is wild to me because y'all need to be buying tickets. Y'all need to go to this. But yeah, it's going to be a great time. I'm going to be I'm not going to get to sleep for like 2 weeks between Fretboard Summit and the trainings that I'm doing. Because I'm doing back-to-back trainings on 28th and the 29th of August, one in Joplin, Missouri on the 28th, and then on the 29th, I'm in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Your trainings are going to be like, discuss at your table for a minute and you just put your head down.
There's going to be a little bit
like,
of that.
Why doesn't each tablecloth present what they figured out and you just sit in the corner with coffee? Like, you guys are doing great. You're totally crushing.
Oh man, so much coffee. So besides that though, Mark, what else has been happening in your world? You've been like globetrotting all over the Northeast.
It's been crazy. Yeah, it's school wrapped up in June for us, and then I had booked some shows with my band, and we were out playing in Rhode Island. We were playing like super upstate New York, like across like
Rhode Island's big enough to have a venue.
I'm
kidding.
You should
I don't
definitely
know that I have
go
any
to
listeners.
Rejects Beer Company. My buddy is like the brewmaster there, and he's also a huge gear dork. Love it. And he will just like, they book so many cool weird events. Like when we played, there was like a screening of a horror movie right before.
Yes.
And then it was like a horror anthology, and the guys who made it were doing a Q&A, and then he's like, all right, now these like punk rock bands are going to play afterwards. And and like they had like, you play and there's like a garage door at the back of the venue just opens, and you're like, there's the ocean. And it's like,
I was about to say, it's like, I looked it up because it's right there on the ocean,
right on the water. Yeah, I was like, this is pretty cool. So we played there a couple times. But yeah, so we went out and did that. That was super fun. And after that, I just got back yesterday from Earthquaker Day.
Yeah,
and this is my second time going out there. We were sponsoring it again this year, and it's so much fun. If you have never been to Earthquaker Day, it's just super, super cool. Like, I love that company. They're all fantastic people. And I'd been a fan, like, since I first heard about them. Like, I have so many Earthquaker pedals. And when we did NAMM in 2023, like the small one, we did the Stompbox booth where it's like 20 builders all sharing a booth, and you get like a little spot for your pedal board, and like that, share. So my wife and I went for that one, and I'd never been before. I'm like, this is just wide-eyed figuring it out. And they're like, you guys are put right here, right next to Earthquaker. And I was just like, wait, so I'm like, we're just swimming in the wake. Like anybody like waiting in line for their board, I'm like, you should check out ours. We're right here. And just by proximity, like you're just next to the people for three days, and we just got to be friends with a bunch of the people that work there. And they had said like, oh, you should come to Earthquaker Day. I'm like, oh, I always wanted to, but like scheduling and whatever. And they're like, you should like be one of the sponsors, and you can set up a board and do that. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. So I was like, let's try it. So we went and did it, and there's like bands playing, there's shop tours, there's all these one-offs in like different colors for all the pedals that you can buy. Food trucks, there's pedal clinics, and like there's tons of different sponsors. Like I know Stompbox Sonic from Boston had a table. Bees Music Shop, who we're friends with, had a whole booth. Nick,
love Brian, love Bees. We just did a giveaway with him.
Oh, nice. Yep, I got my shirt right here.
I've got that one.
That's a good one
in the closet. But
Wonder Effects was set up there. Cusack and all their brands with it. So it's like all this stuff, and then we were just the people like right behind us do some nonprofit that just like helps bands like records. Like we have a budget, and they're like explaining all these like local things. You're like, this is super cool. I think Gotta Groove Records, who presses vinyl records, was there. It's just like all these different things that are all like music and music adjacent. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's wild. Yeah, I've never been, so that's one of those that I haven't gotten up there for. It's
And
so far away.
it's yeah. I mean, for us, it was like a 5-hour drive,
Yeah.
and so we went last year. I went with James and Steve, who helped me do stuff with the company, and like we all had a blast. And they couldn't make it this year. My wife was like, yeah, let's go." She's like, "I miss those guys." And we just kept joking. We're like, "They're our camp friends. We see them like a couple times a year. We just hang
Yes.
out." And like, there's like a pre-party the night before, and then there's a party after the event. So when you just go to this bar where there's like, one of the bands was like all Earthquaker employees who started a Radiohead cover band. So
Oh,
and
wow.
it's like, you think of like all the effects, and you're like, yeah, they nailed it. They were great. Um, but you're just hanging out, and then you just see your friends you haven't seen in 6 months, and you're just like, what have you been up to? And we're like, it was just a super big party. But even, and that's just, from like the businessy side of it. But
Yeah.
for the public, everybody was like stoked and smiles. And I had people coming up to us who were like, "I saw you last year. What's new?" Or like, "You had a prototype of a compressor last year. Is that out now?" I'm like, "It is." Like, "I want that. Can I buy?" And I was like, "Oh, great. Yep." And
Oh,
like,
that's cool.
so it really helped us, just like people who are pedal nerds want to find more pedals. And I'm like, cool. And we're just hitting it off. Um, I will say, I know there's like pictures all online. Uh, the rainstorm when it started this year was disastrous. Like,
Yeah, I saw your video or picture. I
yeah,
can't remember which, but yeah, it was like I was like, dang.
like Bee's music shop, their tent collapsed. Um, at first, like, we were in the mid. There's like a big tent, and we were like in the middle, and I'm like, I think we're okay. I think our stuff's dry, and we're all set. And I'm like, why are my feet wet? I'm like, oh, I'm in ankle deep water right now. Like, let's
Whoa.
because it's in a parking lot, so
Yeah.
it just starts flooding. I'm like, ugh. So I'm like unplugging stuff. Jamie runs out with a broom and just starts pushing water. The entire Earthquaker team is like getting everybody tarps. They're like getting push brooms and leaf blowers to try and get the water out. Like,
Man.
and like they definitely just like hopped right to action. And
Yeah.
like somebody had said, like, I've never seen someone smoking a cigarette with a push broom look as cool as Jamie.
I love it. Well, just welcome to the unpredictability
Oh yeah.
of late or midsummer weather
Yeah.
in the Midwest.
But and it's funny because like people were coming by. This was like right as it was opening. So like when we all
Yeah.
set up, it was like, it looks like it might get bad. And then right when it hit whatever 11 a.m. or whenever it started, it was just like downpour, and people were showing up, and they would come to our booth and be like, "Oh, look at that!" I'm like, "I'd love for you to hear it, but we have no
Yeah.
power." I'm like, "I could sing it to you and be, it sounds like da 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 da." And they were like, "Oh," I'm like, "Yeah, just come back in an hour. We'll be ready by then."
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was definitely a wild one, but everybody handled it like champs. And like, I will say, the night after that, everybody just let their hair down. It was like, we got through it.
Yeah.
Let's get some drinks. It was just
Yeah.
like
The
that.
the stress of that, man.
Yeah, but it was so much fun. I love it.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those events I want to get up to one day. It's sort of how, Sweetwater's doing Gear Fest, but differently this year. It's Guitar Fest. I actually think it's this week.
Oh,
Maybe it's next week. I don't know. Time is a flat circle, and I have no idea what's going on in the world. Um, that's what happens when you have COVID. Maybe it was last week, and I just don't know. I don't remember anything.
you just made it up. It's just a fever dream,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, it's just a fever dream. I don't know, but it is one of those things that I want to get to that one day. I want to get to Gear Fest one day. Doing NAM again in January. They didn't run me off the first time. Uh, I think it's really cool though, because Earthquaker Day is not the only like pedal day event you've done in the last few weeks. Like, I live in Mississippi. This shit does not happen in Mississippi. I had to be told this kind of stuff happens.
Yeah,
And then I see you're going to it like every other weekend. You're like, "Oh, it's summer. This is my freedom time. I'm going to go nerd completely out."
it's pretty great. I mean, I didn't know that like this was a thing for like a very long time. So like people who don't know, like I started building pedals from scratch in 2020
Right.
and did a bunch of clones and was just kind of like learning and modding and blah 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 blah. And then in 2021, in like September, we started summer school. So we're coming up on our 3-year anniversary,
That's awesome.
which is silly. It's like think about like what happened in 3 years, but also like no, it feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
But about like a year in, we had done some stuff, and I just saw, I was at work and I saw on Instagram that Mojo Hand had posted like, oh, we're doing a board for the Brooklyn Pedal Show, and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not that far from Brooklyn. It's a few hours away, and I was like, I got some pedals, and I just had never heard of it. I didn't. I had seen like guitar shows around here. Like
Sure.
we're in Syracuse, New York, in the middle of upstate New York, and like once a year at the the Marriott Hotel, somebody rented out the conference room, and a bunch of like old dudes bring their beat up guitars, and it's maybe somebody sells one. Like it's just it
Right.
wasn't. I went once, and I was like, wow, that okay. Like it
I
just
don't know.
wasn't a
You're
thing.
speaking my language here.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
just,
for some,
I'm
if
just
that's your
kidding.
thing, cool. Like
Yeah.
you do you, buddy. That's great. It just wasn't for me. Um, but so I heard like Brooklyn Pedal Show, and I kind of did a little bit of research, but everything was like kind of pre-COVID from like what you saw before. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what this is. Um, so this dude Paolo, who does Delicious Audio, this is his site and his whole thing. I emailed him. I was like, hey, is there any space? Like, I know this is in like 2 weeks at this point, like whatever. And he was like, oh yeah, you could do it. We still got space. Here's our price to get in on it. I'm like, okay. And I was like, what am I signing up for? Like, am I really doing this? And I was like, it's 2 weeks out. Like, I got to get a hotel. Like, what's going on? And my wife's like, yeah, just go do it. Like, yeah, the company can afford it.
Okay. I've not met your wife yet, but she sounds like my kind of people.
Oh
She's
yeah,
like, "Yep, go do it.
yeah.
Go do this thing."
You guys would be best
Oh,
friends. She's
go to Earthquake a day. I'll go with you.
yeah.
Oh, Nam, you should go to Nam.
She is the most supportive person in the world. It's amazing.
Your wife's a pedal pusher, is what she is.
Yeah, it's great. So she was like, yeah, go do it. And my buddy Steve, who does all the artwork for our pedals, was like, I'll go with you. He's like, I don't care. I'll go. I'm like, all right, man, let's figure it out. So like we drove down, and when I was like, he's like, so what's it going to be like tomorrow? I'm like, I have no idea. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, man. Like, I'm freaking out. Like, are we going to sell anything? Are we just losing money? I don't know. And so we go, and it was like an art gallery where there's like a bunch of tables in the middle, and there's tables all around the outside. And I show up with our stuff, and Paolo's like, who are you? And I'm like, I felt like when you're 15 years old and somebody's like, oh, you're in a metal band? What's your metal band called? And you have to like say your stupid band name. But
it's the first time you said it to anyone who wasn't your band member.
Like out of context, if you're like, we're called like Skulls of Destruction, and they're like, okay, that's weird. So,
actually, no, that's a really good name. Actually, off the top of your head, that's pretty good.
Yeah, you can have that one. That'll be our metal band. We'll start. I'll send you.
That'll be my next blues band. Yeah. Philip Carter and the Skulls of Destruction. Yeah. Do 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 do
yeah.
do do do.
I thought it would be more like Clutch or something. I don't know. But he's like, all right, who are you? I'm like, Summer School Electronics, and just had that instant like flashback. He's like, oh, you're over there next to Empress and Red Panda. And I'm like, oh, those are like real companies. They're like, yeah, you're right across from Electro Harmonics. And I'm like, oh, yeah. This is a thing. And I'm like getting our stuff set up, and I'm like nervous. And some woman comes up, and she was like looking at it, and she's like, oh, can I try it out? And I'm like, oh, sure. I'm like, you're my first tester, because I don't know. And we're talking. And then she's very nice. She walks away, and then someone goes, oh, hey, Heather, what's up? And I'm like, that was Heather Brown. Like,
oh, I love Heather.
Didn't put it together. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're like in it now. And like Death by Audio guys were there, and like we hit it off with them. They were so nice, and we're just like, this is weird. And so we do the whole event, and like we meet a bunch of people, and it was kind of like the busyness of NAMM, but just like you would have to do like 5 laps around in order to get to all the demo things. It was like 2,000 people
Yeah.
like crammed in this thing like throughout the day. So I was like, wow, that was wild. Like, this is nuts. And so like a week or two later, Paolo emails me back about the event and he goes, oh, what are you doing for NAMM? And I'm like, reading about it on the internet, like watching YouTube. I'm like, what am I doing for NAMM? Like, I'm a teacher in New York. What are you and he's like, oh, well, all the pedal builders were doing like the Stompbox exhibit, and it's a more affordable way to like do this whole thing.
Yeah.
And he sends me our price list, and I'm like looking at it and thinking like, we got flights, we got hotels, we got da 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 da. And I'm like, oh, but that's how you get dealers and you got whatever. And again, my wife was like, you know what? You only live once. Let's do it. Let's go.
This
And I'm like,
podcast is supported in part by Stringjoy Strings. I'm a snob. At least that's what people tell me. I'm never okay with good enough, and that's where Stringjoy Strings come in. They're better than good enough. They're the best. Stringjoy are making some of the finest strings available today right up the road from me in Nashville, Tennessee. They offer custom sets, balanced tension, coated strings, the works. If you need it, they can probably make it happen. You should be using Stringjoy Strings, and if you're going to order from them, you really could help this podcast out by clicking the affiliate link down in the description or show notes below. You get amazing strings, I get a little bit of that back to help the show keep going. It's a win-win situation. Get your Stringjoy Strings today.
I'm like, all right. And
I love it.
yeah, and it's like that led to Earthquaker Day, and that led to like all the, it's just everything just kind of like keeps going. And like again, for us from a business, it's cool, but it's also going back. We did like the Brooklyn Pedal Show again this past October,
Right.
and then they're in a new location where it's like bigger, and you have 2 different rooms. And I brought my buddy James, who does all our like social media stuff, and he was helping me out for this one. And it was cool just to like, now that I've done it once and like been through the craziness, to be with somebody who's like seeing it for the first time.
Yeah.
And is like, wait, there's like Acorn Amps is like right there, and Fish Circuits is right there, and Rev Amps, and like he's going around like playing everything. And
It's like, James, you're supposed to be over here helping me.
And I was like, no, and like he did great, but it's like it's cool to be like, yes, it's awesome, because then like now he could run our booth, and like I could go like chat with everybody, and like you do it enough, it's it's like any sort of event. Like if you play a show with a bunch of bands, like load in is really like the fun hangout time. Like once the show starts, the audience is there. It's like, we got to go to work. This has to run correctly. But if you get there early enough where it's just bands hanging out, you're like, this is fun. Like these are our people. So from doing like these types of shows, it's really, really cool because you get to meet all these other companies, and like we're so young that it's still like sometimes it feels weird to be like, oh no, that we're supposed to be here. Like that's kind of weird.
No, I'm with the band.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah, which is just kind of silly. But no, they're so fun. I know Paolo he does more of it, just like Portland, LA. This year they're doing Montreal and Toronto. I think we're gonna do the Toronto one in November.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's not that far from you.
No, that's
real close.
From here. That's like 3 hours, maybe 3-4 hours.
Okay.
And we just got a Canadian dealer, which is great, so I don't have to worry about getting pedals like over the border with the tax and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve's Music in Montreal and Toronto, like they carry our pedals, and so that was one of the things I was always like stressing about, because it's like trying to deal with that. So I remember the first show we did, Empress was next to us, and they're from Canada, and so when people would come by and be like, I want to buy the compressor or whatever, they would just be like, oh, you have to go to the store that's like in the building. A shop was like sponsoring it, and they're like, we don't have anything. You got to go there because we didn't bring stuff down.
Yeah, because you had to pay taxes on it coming in and probably going out, and it's a whole thing.
And they're big enough, like they have a dealer, and it's all. But at the time, I think we maybe had like 2 stores that were carrying our stuff. So I'm like, when we would sell like a Gladys pedal, I was like, yes. And it was funny because he would be next to me, and he would just be like, that's awesome. Like he was like, good job, little buddy, you're doing great. And I was like, yeah. I love that. I'm like, our companies are a little different in size, but it was just
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, exactly.
But it was just very supportive. It was really, really fun. So I was like,
Yeah,
awesome.
you're at the level, or at least especially at the time, you were still at the level of company that you actually still got the notifications for every sale on your website.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of having to go into an analytics
Yeah.
dashboard on the
Yeah.
back end.
And I was just like, this is crazy. This is super fun.
It's a weird way to think about companies, because I've gotten that way about social media now, because the Instagram page for this podcast has started to grow,
Mhm.
and the Threads page is starting to grow. And by the way, y'all, if you're not following either one of us, Summer School Electronics or 40 Watt Podcast, on Threads and Instagram, you should go do that. I post nonsense rage bait over on Threads.
I love it.
That's what I've been told, is I post nothing but rage bait.
It is one of
No,
my favorite things to read.
yeah, I have thoughts, and sometimes they make people angry. And so, but no, and Instagram, I just basically post my own gear journeys and things about this podcast. But they're growing enough now that I've realized I don't get notifications for everything anymore.
Oh yeah.
I get every fifth notification on my phone,
Yeah.
so I have to actually log in and check things. I was like, oh, that's a weird feeling, and it's got to be that way as a company when you grow past where, oh, I don't actually see every notification for a sale on the website.
It reached a point where it was like, it hits a tipping point, because it was like getting to where I'm like, oh, I'm getting a lot of notifications. I just turned them off, because I was like,
Yep.
I'm a teacher during the day too. Like at one point I'm like, I need to stop looking at my phone and like actually do my job.
Yeah, especially if you're telling other kids they can't look at their phone.
Yeah, there's definitely been times where I was like, hey, you should put that away. I should probably go, that's right. No, this is business. This is different. I'm texting your other teacher right now. I'm telling her
exactly
what
you're doing.
Yeah.
Don't make me text your parent while I have my phone out.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a whole other funny thing. When I was at Earthquaker Day and I was talking to Jamie, we were just talking about how, like, he has kids and they're in school and he has to like meet with the teachers, and some of the teachers know like what he does, like making pedals and like being in bands. And we were just like commiserating. So I'm like, oh no, there are like parents that know that like I play in bands, and it's a weird dynamic thing when like this is a couple of years ago. I used to play in an all 90s cover band, and so I show up to work one day and I park in the parking lot, and there's a guy dropping off his kid, and as I walk by, he just kind of like gives me the head nod and wave, I was like, all right, hey, and I go and work, whatever. And one of the kids had to be like 8 years old or something, was like, Mr. Turley, are you in a 90s cover band? And I was like, yeah, man, I am. He's like, my dad's a big fan.
Oh, that's awesome. I definitely thought that story was going to go a different way, whereas like you see the parent in the parking lot and they like try not to make eye contact because they realize they were that hammered guy making a scene at your last show.
I've definitely had that too. Like there's been some people who like show up just like completely sloshed, and they're like, you teach my stepson. I'm like, who is it? I'm like, okay, that's I'm gonna go back to playing guitar now.
I'm gonna try to forget that whole association.
But we did have I had one kid I was teaching who had I like call his dad to talk about something, and his dad played in a bunch of like local metal bands, and so he's like, you play in bands too, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, do you know such and such? Have you played this venue? I'm like, yeah. And we were like in similar worlds, but we didn't totally overlap. But
paths never crossed.
Yeah, but it was he was on like the more metal side, and I was like more the punk rock side. But like we knew a lot of the same people, so anytime I had to call to just do like a a check in for whatever for school, it was just funny because he would just be like, "Hey," he was so excited to talk, but just like talk music at the same time. And I'm like, that's great. And then his son joined my guitar club and loved it. He was like, it was the best.
So let's talk about this guitar club again, actually, now that you brought it up. I love this idea. I love what you're doing. I love that, like, there are kids not just learning to play guitar, but like you're teaching kids to build pedals. You're teaching kids electronics through Guitar Club.
It's the kids have kind of learned. So we got a bunch of acoustic guitars donated from Songbirds Museum in Chattanooga,
which is insane to me. That's awesome.
They're so helpful. It's amazing. Diodario also stepped up and donated a bunch of straps and a bunch of like picks with our logo on it, and they've helped us out so much this year too. It's awesome. So these kids are loving it, and I'll bring in my like demo board of all like the summer school stuff to try to explain to them like how we got these guitars, and like,
Uh-huh.
you know, you have to, they're tools, but you have to treat them with respect because like we need these to last, and you have to, you know, and like this is why we got them, and that's what it is. So I have a little guitar amp in the room, and I'll bring in an electric, and they'll like push all the buttons and flick all the switches, and they're just like, whoa. I'm like, yeah, you guys are like avant-garde noise artists right now. Is like one kid's like playing, and the other's just like making like feedback loops.
I love it.
But then like they'll start learning like Seven Nation Army. You know, all these kids love watching soccer and hearing all like the chants at the stadiums, you know. And like, oh, yeah, it's pretty simple to play on one string, and
Yeah.
you can pick it up pretty quick. And they love it. And then I'm like, now why don't you turn on that fuzz pedal and try that real quick? And they're like, whoa, like that just blows their mind, you know.
Yeah. No, I love that. I like that. I like that it's getting kids excited about guitar. And I feel like we're at a place where kids, the youths, because I'm so old, younger people are getting excited about guitar, where it kind of started to fade there for a little while, and they're getting back into it.
Yeah. It's one of those things too that's just like it's always cool. And I don't, there's something about it in that like it's easy enough to pick up that just about anybody can make something happen.
Yep.
And it's universal enough, you know. But there is that bit of a learning curve. But if you can get through that curve to start playing guitar, if you're like, my fingers really hurt and this sucks, like, yeah, but if you can just have like that little bit of perseverance, you're like, that sounded like a note. I'm like,
Yeah.
that was a note. You did great. And that's the funny thing that like we kind of fight with at the beginning of our guitar club is that I have new kids that'll show up and they're like, oh, I'm so ready, I'm gonna do it. I'm like, okay, listen up. All I want you to do today is hold down one string and pluck it and make it not sound like you just lost a Guitar Hero. I just don't make it fret out. Like, don't make it go plink. If you can just get a solid note, that's all we need today. And I'm like, because in 5 minutes, you're all going to start crying that your left hand really hurts.
Yep. 100%.
And of course, they're like, no. And then I'm like, on the dot, 5 minutes. They're like, can I take a break? My hand hurts. But as you get through it, and now that I have some kids who like started in 6th grade and now they're in 8th grade, so they can like hang longer and they know some riffs, it really pays off to be like, if it's someone's like, I want to learn how to play Super Mario, it's a super easy thing to get them hooked. And I'm like, oh, if you want to do that, like you should talk to that another kid. Like, do you know how to play it? Yeah. All right, you go teach him. I need you two to sit down and learn to work together, because that, I think, is more motivating for guitar. Of like, if you have a teacher telling you it's not that hard, look at it, and you're like, well, now I'm like kind of discouraged, because even though you're teaching me, it feels like you're miles ahead of where I'll ever be. But if I can get a buddy who is maybe like 2 steps ahead of you to be like, it's this, man, catch up to me, that's like an achievable goal. And it's like, you're teaching social skills, you're teaching patience, and you're teaching music on top of that. And it's like teaching citizenship, basically. And it's enough to like get them started, because then it's like, oh, you both know how to do it? Play it for me. No, but you got to play together. And then they're just like, what? I'm like, you got to listen to each other and play at the same time. Let's do it. And that's a whole other skill set. But it's more fun when you're doing it with somebody.
Always, every time.
And that's, I think, because that's the other part too, is like, we do our guitar club, but I can't send the guitars home with the kids, because like, I know how their Chromebooks come back when I send those home. So, and there's a budget.
I know how our library books come back.
Yeah, so they're like, can I take it home, please? I'm like, oh, you with your Chromebook that has Play-Doh in the keys? No, that one. Sorry, man, I'm not playing that game.
Do you remember your Chromebook where the W key doesn't work anymore?
It'll be that thing where like there's that like Instagram thing, like the acoustic guitar full of beans, and they're like, it'll be something like that.
The acoustic guitar comes back and it's no longer a guitar; it's just a shaker.
I made it a solid body. Oh wow, how helpful! Thank you.
It's full of insulation foam,
Yeah.
like the spray-in
Yeah.
kind. I don't know what you were trying.
I love the engineering spirit. I love where you're going. I just wish you didn't
I
go.
don't know who let you have power tools
Yeah.
for spraying insulation, but
But yeah, so that's the hard part is like the kids can't take it home, but like some of them have gotten through where they're like, I'm asking for a guitar for my birthday, or like, hey,
nice.
my mom found this one on like Facebook Marketplace. Is this good? Should I get this? And it's like, okay, yes or no, and like
Yeah.
they're getting so into it, and I'm like, it's
Yeah.
great that
Yeah,
they're all about it.
I just love the whole letting them discover it, letting them have fun with it. And there's this part where they're getting to do it where maybe their parents didn't want to spend money only to find out their kid doesn't want to
Yeah.
do it. But now they're getting this opportunity to try it and then like, no, I want to do this. I want to play this.
And that's the thing too, like the district I teach in is not the most affluent area
Yeah.
around here. So a lot of these kids, like a $200 Epiphone guitar might as well be a Murphy Lab. Like
Right.
it's not.
It's a big deal.
So to have like, oh no, here's something you're gonna play, and guess what? Like I set it up. Like the neck isn't backbowed, and the strings aren't razor blades. Like it's
Yeah.
fun to play. So like that is a little more encouraging to get them going, you know? And at the last day of we do like a fall session and a spring session. The last day I had asked them like, you guys love playing all the pedals and stuff and like hearing it with electric. And they're like, yeah, we love it. I'm like, do you want to know how they're built? And the kids are like, oh yeah, we'd love to. So we made a bunch of Pepperelli fuzzes, or I made a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And I got them all like soldered and put together, whatever. So I just brought in the cases, and the kids had to like, it's basically just tightening like putting on the washers and tightening the nuts to be like, all right, this has to go in this way. You got to hold it in place and do this, and then like, let me check it and use the rocket sockets to like tighten it, whatever. And the last day we did it, like my room was so hot, and we don't have air conditioning in my room. This is like we had a heat wave in like May or June or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, this is a literal sweatshop right now. Like it is like 90. It is 90 degrees. I'm like, I brought you guys ice cream, but I hope it helps.
It's the equivalent of the workplace pizza party.
Yeah, and so it really boosted morale. Like they did great. But no, honestly, like they were doing this, and I was like, I feel bad. Like my room's not air conditioned. I can't do anything about it. But like nobody complained. They sat there for an hour. They had so much fun just being like, no, you're holding it wrong. Let me show you how to fix it. And it goes this way. And like, did I do that? And like, you looked at it like, bud, you got a whole plate full of washers right there. Those should be
those should be in
the
there
pedal.
somewhere.
We should probably fix that. Like, but so they got them all put together. And then I was like, all right, guys, so now we got to learn how to check them. So like one at a time, they got the guitar, came up to the amp, and I'm like, you got to plug it in. Where's the input? Where's the output? And like that alone, if you're not used to it, you're like, wait a minute, so my guitar goes in the right, and it's like they did that and figure out the power. And like, well, check you got, power. It's like click it and the light comes on, and they're like, okay. I'm like, all right, turn your amp on, check your clean tone, and I'm like, hit the fuzz that you just built. Let's see. And the look on every kid's face, like if you were eighth in line and you've seen 7 other people do it, you think like you'd be bored. But no, that last kid in line being like, I built this fuzz and it works. Like just fireworks went off. Like they were so excited about it. And then I was like, all right, so guys, like all my pedals, we have to on the inside are dated, and then I have to sign it because Steve and James will help me build certain pedals. But if one comes back on repair, I need to know like, all right, who approved it to go out, whatever.
Yeah.
So all the kids, I'm like, all right, so last step, guys, you got to write the date and like you got to put your initials on the back. And they were like, why? I'm like, because these are going for sale. Like we just got a store in Australia, so
literal sweatshop.
Like I'm like, you guys that could happen. They got paid. They had a blast. I did the real work. It was fine.
I know. They did IKEA pedal building. It's fine.
They built Nauticlons. It's fine.
I still love this idea though, and then getting an idea of how it works, and and even if they don't understand it down to the electronics circuitry of it, they get the idea of building it, and there's a fun pride in having done that. And I love how you're like, no, you've got to figure out which side goes into which. Listen, my sister who is very intelligent and has played guitar since she was 9, was in her 20s before she stopped asking me which side she plugged her guitar into on her pedal
Yeah,
board.
right.
You know what I mean? Like,
It's
it's like Jacqueline. It is on the right.
well,
It's always on the right.
these are like the little things that like you forget until you have to teach somebody else. They're like, it doesn't sound right. I tuned it to whatever D, and
Yeah.
it doesn't sound right. And I'm like looking at the tuner. I'm like, that little dot means sharp. You tuned it to D sharp. And there's like, what does that mean? I'm like, ooh, you are like 13. How am I gonna? And like, you have zero
Yeah.
like sheet music.
Who is
like,
your music teacher?
yeah. I'm like, all right, well, just make sure that dot is not on, because we got a lot of other stuff we got to cover today. Like, we're doing the
Yeah.
we're reading tab, man. We're doing the quick version. Like, I only got you for an hour.
Yeah, I taught elementary school choir
Yeah.
for 1 year. 45, like they contracted me for 45 minutes a week.
Uh-huh.
That's what they contracted me for. As a private school, I did not have a music education degree. I had a music degree. In fact, it was a music and audio engineering degree.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't even
Close enough.
close enough. I didn't get that 4th year of
Yeah.
theory. So, no, actually I got the 4th year of theory. I didn't get the 4th year of like form and analysis,
Yeah.
which is fine. But like my loftiest goal with those kids was if I can get you to start and stop on the same time same
Perfect.
time,
That's amazing.
we're good. If y'all all sing the same words,
Yeah.
awesome. Pitch is icing.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like that's just the way this goes.
And that's the thing too, is like, I only have these kids for 10 weeks, and a lot of them are like, they'll do the fall session, but they got like track and field in the spring or vice versa.
Right.
So it's like, I have 10 weeks, really 10 hours to try to get you enough that if you're into it, you know how to go on. Like, I can teach you what tab means, and I can teach you how to tune your guitar, how to do basic chords, how to hold a pick. And if that's enough. Like, we can't get into theory. We're not getting into like, how do you write songs? Like, no, I'm getting you enough that if you want to go down that road, like, you have the tools to go do it.
Right.
But that's kind of like, and if you want to come back, we can try that in the spring or whatever. But like, it's really, you're kind of limited by what you have. So it's, and the other part too is like, I want it to be fun. Like, it's because there's a learning curve. It's not like you're joining like art club and it's like, here's a pencil and a blank piece of paper. You can just go.
They're not joining a chamber chorale kind of thing.
Yeah, where it's like, we've all sang since like we made noise as babies. Like, no, there's gonna be some times where you're like, my fingers really hurt, and you're like, I know, but we gotta kind of get through that, because I promise it'll be so much fun after that.
Yeah.
So but yeah, they're a super cool group of kids. So I am excited to see them again this fall when I go back to teaching and I stop traveling to guitar shows.
Are you ever going to get air conditioning in your room? Look, I'm in the South, where the thought of any room ever without air conditioning is absolute hell on earth.
If it makes you feel any better, my room has an exterior wall that faces east. So all morning the sun just bakes it like a brick oven. So like,
no, that doesn't make me feel better.
No, that doesn't make me feel better either. So
you have a twisted sense of trying to make me feel better.
Well, it's
torturous.
I am not looking forward to that. Yeah, that's a rough, real kind of rough one in that room, but
yeah, no, I get it. So going back to the pedals a little bit, I'm real curious because like the first time we talked, the class reunion had not launched yet.
Oh yeah,
and I'm fairly sure that at this point, is that your biggest selling pedal now?
Within the time span since it came out, yes.
Yeah.
The Science Fair, we have still sold more units.
Okay.
That's been out for a longer amount of time. But
yeah,
between like from launch to now, which it's like, I don't know, 4 months later or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely taken off, and
that's awesome, dude.
People, when we had it at the show last weekend, people were like, "Yo, I love this." I'm like, turn any knob, and they're like, it sounds like a totally different pedal. I'm like, yep. I'm like, it will, that thing will write riffs for you as soon as you just start playing.
When I got mine and I started twisting knobs, I was like, I have no idea. these are already starting with circuits that are my least familiar
Yeah.
of, like, the common circuits. And I was like, and now I've got to make them work together. And I was just like, everything at 2:00, let's go.
Yeah.
And actually that worked.
Yeah,
by the way,
that's
everything at 2:00 sounds great.
if you just that's the fun thing is like, so my philosophy for our pedals going forward is I want them to be as much fun to play in a band setting and be reliable and work in a mix and be great tools for making music. They have to be as much fun that way as they are playing alone when you're just like, I'm just trying to find a sound. Like,
Yeah.
if you're just sitting with one pedal and an amp and you're just like, just playing like noodles or like hitting chords, just twisting knobs, I'm be like, I want you to have as much fun exploring the pedal. And then when you find like, that's my sound, it's like reliable to find at a show. Because like,
Yeah.
when you play like synthesizers, you're like, that's really cool. It's like, yeah, but as soon as you turn it off, you'll never find that sound again.
I never get that sound again.
So
yeah, at least in modular synthesizers.
Yeah.
Like that's why I don't play those, because
right.
they drive me crazy. Like I have 2 synths and both let me save shit.
Yeah.
So
so here's a whole other thing. When I did the pedal shows, the Brooklyn one is a pedal and synth show. So half the thing is pedal companies, the other half is like modular synths. And I would, you're messing around as you're walking around. I'm like, I don't get it. Like, I just do not understand why this is fun. I'm like, this just gives me a headache. And like, people are trying to explain it to me of like, well, no, it's like the components of a pedal, but you use patch cables. I'm like, dumb. I'm like, I don't get it.
Dumb.
And it wasn't until somebody was like, no, you're not supposed to find a sound that's reliable. Like, it's the journey, not the destination. Like, you're trying to create something knowing that's cool, and now it's gone. And I was like,
yeah,
oh, now I understand that.
it's like Zen philosophy.
Yeah.
But that doesn't help me when I've got a show on Friday
That's
and
what
I
I'm
got to
saying.
recreate the record.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's what I'm like, oh, that's why I think it's dumb. Because I'm like, because I play gigs and I need something reliable. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Our
right.
set list is only 20 minutes long. It's gonna take me that long to build something. But
yeah, no, I can't.
But that made sense to me
it.
suddenly hearing that. Like, oh no, you're not supposed to. So I'm like, oh, okay. So now with all of like the snow day delay that is 2 delays in one, and the science fair that's the rat and tube screamer together, and the class reunion, all that, I'm like, okay, I want it to try to appeal to both people. Like, you should be able to find something that you're like, oh, this is real fun to play alone. And whether you make something and then like it's gone forever, cool. But it should also be able to recall it in a live gig setting of like, this is my tone, this is what I need, and when I click it on, it's there.
You should be able to get back to it.
Yeah, so that's...
Or I should be able to at least snap a picture of my settings on my phone and get back to it, unlike a modular synth where I take a picture and I can't trace all these wires. I have no idea.
And I don't use germanium transistors. They're going to change with temperature, so if the knobs are where they were, it should all be exactly how it was.
You amateur. No, I'm kidding.
Oh my gosh, dude.
I love me some germanium, I also... so I'm on this like fuzz face journey right now, and I think I talked about it on the Guitar Nerds podcast. I'm collecting fuzz faces, and not just any fuzz face circuit, right? I've got a bunch of fuzz face circuit pedals. No. I want, and you can probably see them. Well, maybe not behind me. I'll show you before we record the Patreon episode. By the way, if you're a new listener, there are Patreon episodes. You can go over to patreon.com/40watt podcast, and you can contribute to this machine, keeping it going. You can hear those. But no, I want to collect all the round Dunlop fuzz faces.
Okay.
If it was in a round enclosure and Dunlop made it, I want it.
Okay.
And so I'm on this stupid journey, but I bought this partly happened. I had rebought one of the red germanium ones, right? That has germanium transistors. So who knows? They had like a mixed bag of germanium transistors they were using. Who knew how good any individual pedal?
Dude.
I've got a pretty good one. It is not the NKT 275s, which is fine. But I also bought a used Jimi Hendrix, the blue one, the big box blue one. But then in Nashville, I found at a good price. It's been at a shop that I love, and it's been there for like a year and a half. The the Eric Johnson gold one.
Okay.
Right, which is still silicon. It's still, but it's like higher gain, hand picked BC 183s, and it's like this whole thing, right? And I I bought it. It was expensive, but I talked them down a little bit since it'd been there for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
And so I brought it home, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be awesome. This is gonna be reliable. I can actually use this. Yes, I will gig a big box fuzz face. Doesn't hurt my feelings." And then I compared it against the used red germanium one that I have that I paid $75 for. The red one kicked its ass. It just sounded better.
Yeah,
but also I play blues festivals in Mississippi and outdoors.
Yeah, where it's warmed up.
Yeah, exactly. It just doesn't work.
Well, I gotta send you our pep rally is based off of Fuzz Face.
Yeah.
It's a Fuzz Face, but it has a tilt EQ and there's a boost on the back end, so you can get that fuzz and just get so much extra volume out of it.
Yeah, because they vanish live.
Yeah.
If you're not cranking your amp.
And that was our thing. The first we did Stone Thrower was our fuzz. We discontinued, and that was one of the things of like you had to kind of dime it in a modern setting. If you're not playing it through a Marshall super lead, full stack, you're like, oh, I don't know, I don't really hear it. But and most people want unity to be around 12 o'clock on their pedals. So the version 2 of the Stone Thrower, quote unquote, is the pep rally, and we made it louder and we did whatever. But when we released it, I was like, it'd be cool if we did a limited germanium version. And I found these like Russian germanium transistors from like 1984, and they were sold to be like within the limit of what's acceptable for a fuzz face, right? Like it has to be within a certain range. But so I got I needed 2 of them per pedal, so I ordered 40 of them, knowing that some won't work. So I had to go through and like test them all, and I'm like, pain in the ass.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not fun.
We did like 15 of them, and like they sold out like instantly. And I had people be like, "Oh, can I get one of them germanium ones?" I'm like, "No,
you can't.
I want no part of this. Like, nope, I don't want. Like, the only one I have is like mine. That was like the prototype, like for my records to be like, I have it. And I'm like, I hate those. And and even now, it's as time goes on, there's leakage, so it's even harder to find one that's appropriate.
The longer it takes, like everybody's like, oh, well, there's got to be like boxes of them in a warehouse somewhere that haven't. Yeah, but if there are, and there probably are, there's still probably some, but they're sitting there degrading.
Yeah.
So the longer it takes to find them, the less likely to be useful they are.
And I mean, and a lot of them are in Russia, so
that's another good point.
Yeah, we can't really get those anymore, and like,
no,
it's a pain to do. So like, I try when I'm building, I try to avoid that, just because there are some people who love it, and like we have many friends who build pedals who will like put in the time and find it and be like, I just bought like 2,000 of them. What are you gonna do? No idea, but I got them.
No idea.
I got them for when I need them. I'm like, I'm not.
It's
that
like
guy. I'm not that guy.
Friend of the podcast, Eric Brania, who has Brania Effects. I love Eric's pedals. I have several of them. He builds not entirely exclusively out of germanium, but a lot out of germanium. There's a reason he only does runs of like 3 to 8 pedals when he builds, because that's how long it takes him to find appropriate transistors.
And as like, as our company is growing and we're doing larger batches for releases, I want to make sure stuff's available. Like, I don't want to have to do like a pre-order or like, sorry guys, you gotta wait till we get we gotta find some stuff. Like, I try to plan it so that, like, if you want your pedal, it'll ship out that day or the next day. You'll get it within a week, generally, depending where you live. That's what I'm trying to do. So, and that's just one of the things, like, those hard NOS parts, you just can't do at that scale as it goes.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
you can't.
Sorry.
That's wild. Well, Mark, we are at the hour mark, and we are going to move over to Patreon. We're going to keep talking, y'all. We're just going to keep talking about craziness and making music and playing in bands and building pedals and playing through amps and guitars. But if you want to join us, like I said earlier, you can go over to patreon.com/40watt podcast, where for $5 a month, you will get a bonus episode every, I can't say week because y'all know I miss weeks every now and again with the podcast, because y'all, when all the school teachers are off for summer, I'm working extra hard because those kids got to go somewhere and they all go to the public library.
They sure do, and so should
They
you.
really do.
Go
Yeah.
support your public library.
Amen, brother. Go support your public library. They need your support now more than ever. And but we're gonna go over there and we'll talk. Hopefully you've had a great time. Mark, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah. So links are down below in the description, in the show notes for Summer School Electronics, or you could just search for Summer School Electronics and you'll find them. Google's a really easy tool. Y'all, it's been around now for a while. Hopefully you've all learned how to use it. Was that condescending enough? I was trying to tap into my elitist librarian mentality. No, I'm kidding.
I like it. That's perfect. That was just enough.
Yeah. No, that was sassy, y'all. I'm sorry. But we're gonna move on. Y'all, thank you for hanging out. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. In the meantime, be good to yourselves, be kind to each other, and make some noise.